For today's Tabletop Paradox Rift battle video, we're going to be trying out a Xatu Psychic Toolbox. Xatu is a really promising card from the new set. It's a single prize Pokemon which can combine energy acceleration and draw power, which are two excellent things in the Pokemon TCG. It allows us to attach a Psychic Energy from hand to one of our benched Pokemon, and then we draw two cards. Reads very similarly to Shadow Rider VMAX, but it's just a single prize Pokemon, which is exceptional. We're going to be trying to power up a number of basic psychic attackers, the first of which is Iron Valiant EX. That Tachyon Bits is still able to pressurize lots of basic Pokemon, and that still might be a big part of this strategy, where we are playing the Fog Crystals, the VIP passes, and the Forest Stone, and plenty of switch cards. We still can try and get into the mix with the Tachyon Bits early and pressurize some basic Pokemon, setting them up for KOs mid-turn with this ability, or for Yoga Loop players which are still in the deck list. But this list isn't quite as wombo combo orientated as the pure Rapid Strike list that we've shown previously. It's more so trying to get incremental value with these Tachyon Bits to take those extra prizes, but we also attack with this card in the archetype as well. That's kind of the big differential here, where we just have a really nice beat stick. 200 damage with that Laser Blade is solid. It can be buffed with a Future Booster Energy Capsule, which is always going to find its way onto your Iron Valiant EX. We have Town Store to tutor these out, which are, of course, amazing pivot options, but increase our damage output. So, unlike the Rapid Strike Valiant build, we have a much better attacking presence into matchups like Miraidon and Roaring Moon, most importantly, so that we have some pressure against these other basic attacking decks. MewEX in here provides a pretty nice pivot, but has that restart ability to continue helping us draw cards under Iono, and has a really solid genome hacking attack. I think this is going to be massive for possibly the Giratina matchup, possibly the Charizard matchup as well, where the Laser Blade may not be getting the job done, even with a number of Tachyon Bits switching in and out over a number of turns. So having some later game burst potential seems like a really solid option, because we can power this up all in a turn, provided we have enough Xatu in play. Shadow Rider V is also a really solid card in the archetype. We're going to be focusing on its second attack, Astral Barrage. For 3 colorless, you choose 2 of your opponent's Pokemon and put 5 counters on each of them. This is actually a really dangerous attack where we already have Tachyon Bits in the deck list. Suddenly 60 and 70 hit point Pokemon are going to be in range for multi-prize turns, and this makes the Shadow Rider a really, really valuable attacker when we do go first. If we go first, get an attachment on Calyrex, and get a couple Natu down, suddenly we're threatening a lot of prizes on that second turn of the game, and still wiping the board from the opponent, and this can't even be safeguarded around with Manaphy, so it's only archetypes that are playing Jirachi that can protect themselves from this. We then, of course, do still have the Medicham V. Yoga Loop isn't really a turn 1 play that we can make here, but we naturally need to fill our bench with a few Natu anyway in this deck list, so it's kind of too all-in to commit down it very early on, but the idea is we can still weave this in a number of situations, so it's still a fantastic option to have in the deck list, because you can never really write off getting an extra turn, extra draws from Xatu, extra acceleration, and extra Tachyon Bits throughout the game. The Squawkabilly is going to be in here. You don't use it quite as often as you would in a pure Rapid Valiant base build, but it's still a nice option if you want to make pushes for donks, for example, so that can obviously be great. And we have such great ball search in the opening stages that we can use this just to see extra cards, because we are quite resource intensive on those opening turns. We want to get Valiants developed. We want multiple Natu in here as well. The items are pretty straightforward, tons of switch cards, tons of ball search cards. We have the Rod and the Retrieval for that recovery of energy, which is really important because we want to be ticking over nicely with Xatu. The Forest Stones are an excellent option. It makes the Shadow Rider and Medicham much better tech cards to have in the deck because they then double up as consistency options. And we're playing a couple copies of Jet Energy for even more switch outs, and because we have so much colorless in the attack cost of our Psychic suite. And it's going to be coming up against the Gholdengo EX. We're still going to be trying out the Irida package for this battle video. Once PTG Live comes out, I am going to be doing an Arven-based build, so I already have had a lot of requests around which is better and whatnot. I'm still undecided on which I actually prefer, but we're still going to see if this one can get the job done in these games. One thing to note for this matchup in particular is that we do have a number of 50 hit point Pokemon, which is a little bit nerve-wracking, and we are not playing the Jirachi either. Definitely a consideration card, and I think these games may highlight that. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code, OmniPoke. So let's get into it then. I'm going to be on the left with the Lechonk sleeves playing the Xatu deck, and Jack is going to be using the best sleeves known to mankind playing the Gholdengo deck. I get to go first in game 1 here, and I lead with a Medicham V. Not necessarily a bad thing. Jack does have a ton of evolving Pokemon, and this gives me a target for Forest Hill Stone. We're playing some town stores in the deck list, so we should have good access to that. And I have Fog Crystal for Natu into a Battle VIP pass for Squawkabilly EX. And I was debating the Shadow Rider V there, as well as the Iron Valiant. It's a close one, really. Ideally, I can go for an Astral Barrage on the second turn of the game to take out multiple Gimmighoul. But just the way my hand's shaping up, I want to get some value out of my Valiant. So we're just going to squawk the hand away. Going to get rid of a Retrieval and a couple Psych Energy, which is a little bit painful, but we do have a Super Rod already in the deck as well. So we might be able to get away with that. Having the second Natu down means I can be threatening Valiant attacks. It also means I do threaten Shadow Rider attacks as well. So that could be my final Pokemon on the bench coming down here. It depends really what I want to represent and how my hand looks. Looks like I'm just going to keep the board space open and pass things over. Actually, I have a Shadow Rider in hand, so that's why we're going for that. But we go over to Jack now, who has his own Battle VIP pass. So that's looking pretty solid. Also has that Hisuian Basculin lead. So we'll be able to get even more basics down. But look at this, another VIP pass. So that's already triple Gimme plus Greninja. And then they could gather the final Gimmighoul out as well. Part of the reason why we love this little Irida package is that you just have such great outs to get early game basics. Jack is going to play a Worker here to get 3 cards. Actually draws into another VIP pass. I don't think he needs to do it if his plan is to use the Basculin though, because the deck actually plays a ton of discard synergy cards with the Superiors, with the Ultra Balls and such, so he is actually going to forego that knowing that he's going to end on the Gather. We'll level ball now though, just have a look through. We do play the Pukumuku, so you can continue to draw cards always, which is nice. And that's going to be the option here. I think other than banking a turn attachment somewhere, I don't know if there's anything else he really wants to do here. The only issue is if he puts an attachment anywhere, I could just target that as my Yoga Loop or Astral Barrage thing, so we'll see how that plays out for him. His hand is really good. A couple letters. He has Gholdengo for next turn, so he's just going to end on the gathering of another Gimme here. I'm able to evolve into Xatu and get a first energy down onto my Shadow Rider. We then have a switch cart, which is looking pretty good. We can go into the Valiant. I tick the Tachyon bits onto Basculin, so that puts me in Medicham range as well. Looks like my supporter's Boss's Orders, though, and we go for a Jet Energy into this Greninja. Sorry, we boss up the Greninja, and then I can Yoga Loop the Basculin. I boss up the Greninja just to make use of a supporter this turn, but also because it can be quite annoying for Jack when he just has 1 energy attachment per turn with the Gholdengo deck, and he chose to not commit any energy anywhere. As we're taking our second turn of the game, I can reuse the same Xatu, because it is a new turn for us here. Ultra Balling away another Boss's Orders and a Switch Cart for our second Xatu. So if we're getting rid of switching outs, it's looking like we have a pretty reasonable hand here. At the very least, there is Shadow Rider ready to go and 2 more cards. We then have Fog Crystal. It's going to be for the Mew EX. Might just be a card that we're thinning here. A turn attachment onto the Valiant, as well as the Research, getting rid of the Mew. Not a terrible card, honestly. Jack does play Radiant Greninja, so there's more ways I could take advantage of that later, but my board space is kind of chock full of other stuff right now. We're able to Town Store out a Future Booster Energy Capsule for our Iron Valiant, which is nice. We then actually get the Switch Cart in, so I am able to Tachyon Bit a Gimmighoul for 20, and then we're just going to barrage 2 more Gimmies down. So we go up 3 prize cards quite nicely thanks to an early Yoga Loop play. And Jack has had a lot of his board picked apart here. Let's see how he can bounce back. It's his first opportunity to evolve up his stuff. Also the first opportunity to use these letters. I think with Irida in the hand, he should still be able to use an Escape Rope this turn and attack with a Gholdengo. As we are seeing the 6 Metal Energy. It's always best to keep the Psychic Energy in the deck because then Fog Crystals remain live during the game. So when you are using these letters, try and avoid getting the Psychic Energies out if you can. Always best to float the metals first. It's also randomly better just in case you need to use an early game Superior, even for just a couple energy, if there's metal in the bin, because that can be used as your turn attachment as well. Jack's able to use a Radiant Greninja for some draw here. We see double Gholdengo. Jack is holding one of the boss's orders as well, which is kind of interesting. Gonna see the first Gholdengo actually draws another letter of encouragement. But in order to move this Greninja and actually get hit in, he is still forced into the Irida instead here. He's gonna grab the rope. We're going to go Squawk. Definitely an argument for me to give up a Xatu there, but I don't want to remove my draw power from play. And I know that from this stage on in the game, I want to have multiple attacks with Iron Valiant. The Medicham and the Shadow Rider, they've done their job, but they're kind of just going to be chilling out on the bench from this point onwards. Really, this is where the Valiant is going to do the heavy lifting, as I look to take out a Gholdengo and likely a one-prize knockout later on as well. So that's kind of the idea of why I didn't just send up a single prizer for Jack. It would give me an additional turn, but I care much more about the energy acceleration at this point to just maintain a steady flow of Valiance. As Jack's able to take the KO with Gholdengo EX on the Squawkabilly. And it has amassed a pretty nice hand size as well. I'm able to Ultra Ball away a Town Store and a Natu. And speaking of Valiant, I want to get another one into the mix so I can start using Tachyon bits on these Gholdengo to get them into range of my laser blades. Of course, the future booster isn't just for the free retreat, it also gives me 20 more damage on the active position. So I'm looking for switch outs really just so that I can finish off this Gholdengo in the active position. I do have rope, which is a little bit awkward. I'm going to pay retreat the Shadow Rider V here and go into my Valiant with no tool attached. Then we're going to play the escape rope. Jack's going to feed the Greninja, which is fine by me because, you know, it's still a one prize, which is relevant to our map. And then we are going to rod back in those Psychic Energy. That's why I didn't go directly into the Valiant. I wanted to retreat the energy off the Shadow Rider to have more energy in the deck in case I get hit with Iono. And also because I'm using Iono myself, so quite happy with that one. Also want to get a turn attachment in if I can. I'm able to Town Store out a Future Booster. That's actually going to be an important card to end our combo. I'm going to manually attach to this Valiant so it's closer to following up with an attack next turn, as we're going to go down to just 2 prize cards remaining. And Jack, it really has his work cut out for him. It's really easy for him to knock out Valiants. They're weak to metal. So this might be a good opportunity for him to weave in an Iono here. We see, first of all, the Town Store. And the Artisan is going to just thin a Manaphy for Jack. And we're going to start seeing some coin bonuses. We see another one for 1. Oh wow, and he actually hits the Iono. Pretty massive there. Limiting my options a little bit. And draws the Superior as well, so can finish off this Valiant. Whilst also getting an attachment, I believe, onto his other Gholdengo, which is nice. Yep. Only needs to give up the 3 energy thanks to the weakness. Dealing that 300 damage. So it's really down to us how we do off this Iono. If I can use Xatu a couple times to clear up this Valiant, we should be all good. I also need to try and find the Super Booster Energy Capsule again, right? Or I need to find another Valiant and lots of switch cards. We do have the Research, though, which is quite fortunate. I also had the Seal Stone, so it looks like that's going to be all she wrote. I even drew into the Future Booster, so I didn't even have to use my Seal Stone. So yeah, really nice win there for the Xatu deck going first. So Jack is, of course, able to go first into this next game. I believe he started with a Manaphy, so insert the Jaws music here, because if I'm able to piece together lots of Valiant and Medicham, I may be able to take a one-turn win against him. But no, there is the Suian Heavy Ball that's going to get him another basic Pokemon at least. It is a Gimmighoul, which is definitely nice. So that's going to be pretty handy. Not sure what else there is. Does have the Fog Crystal, so it does get double Gimme. So it's actually a pretty decent lead. Not the best, no VIP pass, but is still able to conjure up a couple bits here. And passes over to me. I believe has Irida for next turn, so that's something. I am going to develop the early Shadow Rider V. I have a Xatu start. Going to get an energy attachment onto the Shadow Rider V, and then we're going to just Iono for a fresh hand. Let's see what else comes together. I can see Ultra Ball in the hand. Not sure how much else. Looking like a tough call. Yeah, getting rid of Rope and Future Booster. That's not ideal. I'm debating another Xatu here. I'm really interested to see what my hand is, if that's the pick. I'm just passing it over, I think, if Jack's drawing a card there. Yeah. So not the best of starts, missing all VIP pass, just one search for a second Xatu, which means I can still use a Shadow Rider next turn if I only have access to one Xatu, I suppose. So that's the main theory around it. Xatu only has 50 hit points, so can be knocked out pretty cleanly by a Gholdengo if Jack was able to find one. The Picture Puke gets him a Letter, which is a shame, and one of the main downsides of Letter versus Vessel is that if a deck isn't taking prizes against you, it's not live. There has been some debate around how many Letter versus how many Vessels we play. At the moment, we're heavily on the Vessel train, saying that Fog Crystal is still an item card that you could search with Irida to get some energy, but that would only really help for Gholdengo damage or with Greninja draw. Wouldn't actually help out with finding a metal to make it rain, whereas a Vessel would do. So Jack has a pretty painful Ultra Ball here, and we'll just Gholdengo for one. Finds, I think, another Superior. So might even be lacking energy to retreat here. Yeah, he's just clogged up with letters. There's the obvious, like, why aren't you playing Golden Vessel? It's an always open 2. But honestly, the deck feels like it really needs that reach early, and Letter is just the best card for that, because it's 50 extra damage and you don't have to have a discard card, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you already have 8 discarding cards in your deck with Superiors and with Ultra Balls, so that's the justification that I'm going to stick with. I'm able to research. We're also then able to Xatu and attach to this Shadow Rider V, so provided we find a switch out, we should be pretty good to get an attack in here. I'm going to Forest Seal Stone with the Shadow Rider. Maybe that's the missing piece. I might just be needing a switch card here. But it looks like once again the barrage is going to be coming in. Definitely an argument at this stage to say maybe a Jirachi is mandatory in Gholdengo. It really depends on how much of the Xatu decks you expect. Sorry, the Valiant decks, I suppose, as well. I'm going to use another Xatu just to draw a couple cards here by the looks of things, and it does grant access to a Fog Crystal, which is nice. So we can get a Valiant into the mix here. The Xatu only has 1 retreat cost, which is really, really busted. It means it can be a pivot for me now as well for next turn. So that's looking good. And once again, I can take a 2-prize knockout and 2 gimmies, which is insane. Mostly because Jack whiffed a second Gholdengo there. Actually whiffed a lot, really, because Greninja could have easily drawn him more cards, and even retreating Manaphy into Gholdengo would have netted an extra card, so quite unfortunate to have missed all of those sorts of outs. Is now able to use those letters though, because I did take a knockout last turn, so now the energies are truly flowing. He's going to retreat that Manaphy so he can get 2 bonus coins, as well as Greninja getting 2 more cards. I see Ultra Ball in there as well for potential future Gholdengo. It's just going to be the 5 energy discard for the Make It Rain, so he immediately catches back up in prizes. The only issue being really is that his board state isn't like that ideal. With just 1 Gholdengo represented, it's a little bit in danger, I would say. I'm going to Ultra Ball to start things off. Going to get rid of a Xatu and a Town Store and get my second Valiant into the mix. Obviously a big card here. If I can get 2 Tachyon bits onto the active and use a Super Boost Energy Capsule, I should be able to find a knockout here. We're then going to Town Store, get the capsule down. And this is also why the Xatu deck might just be more well-rounded than the Rapid Strike build. It's that even when your opponent gets set up, Valiant is such a good attacker in its own right when you consider the extra bits that you can be putting around the board. I'm able to utilize the just regular energy retrieval one-of in the deck quite nicely here, just to guarantee some more Xatu attachments. We're going to play Nest Ball. It looks like I'm eyeing up the Mew EX. It's a natural free retreater in the deck, which is kind of nice, and it can also top me up on some cards if I am going to lose my hand to some disruption. We're going to pay retreat to the Xatu to ping the active, then we're going to switch into my other one so I can tack you on bits. Then we get the turn attach plus future booster. I'm going to bench a Natu, and then I'm also going to play a Rod here to again continue to have Psychic Energy in the deck for more Xatu plays. Because once again, even with this only Gholdengo going down, it shouldn't be too much to ask for Jack to respond on this Valiant, because it's so low hit points thanks to that weakness. But regardless, we are going down to 2 prizes and looking in pretty good shape. Jack has access to another letter by the looks of things. So plenty of energy in the mix here. And you can see he's left the Psychics till the end. They're all still in the deck. He can then Ultra Ball to get a Gholdengo. You can see more cards with that. There is the Gholdengo. Again, it's a situation where ideally an Iono comes in here. We see the picture Pukumuku. It's just another VIP pass, so that's not great. See the Worker for 3 cards. That at least gets rid of the option for me to get another Future Booster Energy Capsule, which is good. It's able to Greninja, which is okay. So actually with this Valiant getting knocked out, it's pretty difficult for me to deal with this Gholdengo all in one turn. Jack's able to get rid of a couple Vips quite nicely to Superior here. So Jack's actually in a pretty decent position. I might be looking like I'm the one needing to Ono next turn, actually. We are going to see the turn attachment to the Gholdengo. There's plenty in hand. Is just able to make it rain, to level up the prize race, and really asks a question of me now. What can I get going here? We're going to Fog Crystal, grab Valiant number 2. So it is in range for us to KO this Gholdengo. We once again would need to find... Actually, possibly it's not, because I think I Ultra Balled my Future Booster on the first turn of the game. So I think it's just going to be try and pepper up the Gholdengo this turn, look to Hand Disrupt as my play. And that's why you're seeing the Natu come into the active rather than the other Valiant here. We just need the 20 damage this turn, and then I can do the rest next turn. We can Mew EX for a card. I can begin to use Xatu to draw some more. I'm able to Ultra Ball away a VIP Pass and a Forest Hill Stone just so I don't have them in hand. Actually, I'm going to get rid of the Iono so I can draw one more with Mew EX next turn and just pitch the... Yeah, go down to 0 cards so I can draw as much as possible next turn. And really just say, Jack, do you have access to Boss's Orders? If you do, you probably close out this game. He should have draw from Greninja as well as the Gholdengo. There's 2 supporters, but not the ones he's after. He can attach retreat. And then use Gholdengo here. Is he going to hit the Boss's Orders? We see the Basculin and the another Gholdengo, which is a little rough. Now he's in a precarious position. Worker drawing some more cards is okay. It might be more difficult for me to get the KO if he doesn't knock out this Xatu, actually. If he just works towards boss himself. That might be something that he's considering. Could also consider retreating, maybe, but it's not ideal. You could maybe promote the Basculin and try and get into Basculegion next turn as a potential line. He's going to use that Worker. Does draw the Basculegion. Then level balls out the pitch. Then we're going to see the pitch. It's going to be Ultra Ball. Not great. Oh, he's already retreated, right? That's why he can't do the... Yeah, that's why he can't retreat into a 1 prize at this turn. He's already retreated the Manaphy, of course. Because I did the rope thing last turn. So this... in trying to hit the boss, which is definitely the right play, he's now got the Gholdengo trap for me. So it's just about how much I can draw here. The Mew draws me 2 cards. I'm able to Xatu for 2 cards. Then I'm able to Town Store just to reset the deck, I imagine. Definitely have a few outs in here. We can use our other Xatu, so 3 energy are there. I can research the hand away. Getting pretty low in cards remaining in deck now. I'm able to jet into this Valiant, get the ping. There's the switch card, the final ping, and we can get over the line with the 200 damage. So pretty close towards the end. Jack did have the opportunity to win that second game. Had they found boss's orders, wasn't meant to be that time around. And definitely, this is a game where you see that argument for the big barrel in there. If he could have seen a few additional cards before then using Gholdengo and Greninja, maybe he still bounces back from that situation and closes out the game. I know that's the hot debate between our deck list and just like a more traditional Arven list. But an interesting series nonetheless, and showing off Xatu in a pretty good light. I feel like this has a ton of potential. Even though the rapid build is so explosive, I feel like this one is a more well-rounded archetype once the opponent gets into the game. Starting off with the Xatu deck then for some other considerations, I am thinking about just 1 copy of Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX. It may feel a little out of place here, and there will be matchups where you won't be able to evolve into this Pokemon because having a Dark Week 3 prize Pokemon is really detrimental, but the fact remains that you oftentimes will go for a Shadow Rider in the opening stages, and it becomes a dead space on your board at times, immediately after using your Forest Seal Stone. So having 1 VMAX in the deck converts this into another means of accelerating and drawing more cards throughout the game, and that Maxgeist option could still be a pretty handy one to have in the deck. It's probably ending up doing less damage than the remainder of your attackers, but with its bulk, especially with Iono, it could give this deck a different dimension rather than just being purely racing with 2 prizes. The new Iron Jugulis could be an alternative to the Shadow Rider. It actually can deal 50 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, however it can be blocked by Manaphy, so it's a real pick your poison situation, where Shadow Rider is blocked by Jirachi, Jugulis is blocked by Manaphy. Overall I believe Manaphy will be the more popular tech card of the 2, but there will be a crossover between a number of these archetypes, so let's play that one by ear, and have in mind that Jugulis could just be a decent single prize attacking option with its second attack as well, provided we play enough future booster energy capsules. With so many one-off attackers, the Hisuian Heavy Ball is certainly a consideration that I'm trying to squeeze into the deck list. Double Turbo Energy is a pretty interesting one. We have 2 colorless in the attack cost of our Shadow Rider, our Mew, as well as, of course, Medicham, and I think that's the big one here, where we really lack that explosive option to Yoga Loop that we had in the pure Rapid Strike Urshi build of Iron Valiant. So having the Double Turbo Energy, even as a 1 count and having it as a Forest Seal Stone option, could unlock some unlikely Yoga Loop plays, which could catch people off guard. If it turns out that the Xatu build isn't explosive enough to keep up with some of these evolution-based decks when it's not on all cylinders, the Double Turbo could certainly make its way into the deck list, and it's one I need to explore. Although Town Store is a fantastic stadium card, it does get diminishing returns after you found your initial Forest Seal Stone and your booster capsules, so Pokestops coming in over them completely, or taking a couple of those spaces could be reasonable to give us more dig towards our switch outs and helping us get our ball search cards. And finally, Lost Vacuum's a pretty nice consideration card. It could be handy against the likes of Roaring Moon and Miraidon, which have health buffing tools, and it adds to our overall path bounces. For an ability-focused deck with those Iron Valiants, this could be a really big deal. One final thing to say is that it was extremely greedy of me to not have Manaphy in the list. I actually do make the cut of Energy Retrieval for Manaphy for some other games that you may see on the channel later down the line. For Gholdengo, the debate rages on whether Arven or Irida is the best option. Scizor is probably the best 1 prize attacking option in that build, where you don't have Irida to search out the Basculin, and Bibarel will probably help out in those late game scenarios. Even in an Irida build, a Bibarel could end up being a 1/1 line as well, but I would also debate this over Milotic, which just gives you overall better protection against Iono. And yes, 50 hit points is definitely a detriment if Iron Valiant is going to be a big threat in the game. Making space for Jirachi can be a little bit awkward, and as soon as you play the 2 Retreat Cost Gimmighoul, the Basculin becomes far less valuable, so I think this would be limited to an Arven build overall. That alone might make the Arven build better than Irida, where you just lose all access to your Basculin in the first place, but we're still in that wait and see period for which archetypes are coming out on top in the new format. Finally, Countercatcher is another consideration card. We play Irida and Arven as a a 4 count most likely in either of these builds, so giving yourself better access means that even if you are hit with hand disruption, you will still often have access to gusting an opponent's Pokemon and have far better outs with one counter catcher in your list compared to boss's orders, providing you're behind in a late game scenario. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you thought about both lists, and we have plenty more Paradox Rift content to come, not long now until it's on PTCG Live, and I am going to be streaming once again, so make sure you check out both the YouTube and the Twitch in the next coming days.